Hang on, everybody. Wait, now where is it? Got it. Okay. Julie and Dan, does this look okay? You guys can see everything?
Yeah.
Looks great. Mhm.
Okay. Now that I'm sharing, I forgot this, that I'm not gonna be able to see any of the comments. So Dan, if you can kind of keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I'll ping. Do you want me to uh, interrupt you as they come through or find a good break point?
Yeah, generally we can watch the time, but like generally speaking, I'd probably take them at the end because we have a fair
Okay.
number of slides, but like unless there's like
Sounds
a
good.
clarifying point on something we just talked about, that kind of thing.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and I'll watch
Okay.
the comments too while you're talking, Jen.
Yeah. All right, just a quick introduction. I'm Jen Kazin. I'm an account engagement consultant in Marketing Cloud, specifically Marketing Cloud Next consultant, and I'm here with Julie Edminster, who's also a marketing cloud architect, and specializes in Data Cloud as well and Marketing Cloud Next. So um, I'm kind of I am a member of the Twin Cities user group. I think Julie is the New Hampshire's user group. And then I'm also, I do some user group on on the side as well. I kind of have a private group, but we're here just to talk about the new Marketing Cloud Next and the implementation. So first of all, quick overview. Today it's a virtual meet. Yep. Add any questions to the chat. We're going to try to keep going because sometimes when we get questions on the chat, we get to the end and we run out of time. So we're going to try to catch the questions at the end. We're going to try to leave 10 to 15 minutes for questions. This meeting is recorded. I already hit the record button. Anyone who registered will get an email with the link to watch the recording. We are not reviewing the whole implementation process step by step. Okay, that is too long. I don't know if anyone who would really want to sit through that. That would be a very long process. What we're doing here in the spirit of this is Julie and I have done an implementation, or we have done some implementations, and we just are highlighting 7 potential trouble spots. Like, everybody's going to go through this step. Here's some of the things we found. It's not in the documentation. This is more of the real world life example of what we're dealing with and what customers tend to say. So we're going to kind of walk you through that. Our discussions do assume that you know basic data cloud. So for instance, when we talk about identity resolution rules, we're not going to take a step backward and explain what those are. So we're just going to kind of move forward. I still think this is probably about an intermediate level if you have some data cloud experience. I don't think we're not going to be talking over anybody. But I'm just going to say that in order to keep the content the way it is, we do need to kind of talk through it with some assumption that you know as well. Hey, before we get into this, who on the call has some experience with Marketing Cloud growth or advanced implementation? I don't know. I see some common names on there. Is there anyone? And Julie, you guys can watch that. Throw your name in the chat if you do.
Aaron.
Aaron's
All
on.
right, Aaron, you can help us answer the questions in the chat, Aaron.
Awesome. Perfect. That's
And
exactly what I was.
Brandon, maybe?
Yes. Awesome. Um, so
Oh, Stephanie, great. Thank you.
Stephanie as well.
hmm
Okay, good. Because we are not coming to you with this polished presentation like everything is perfect. I mean, we're basically just talking to you. We want this to be very organic. I mean, I don't claim to be an expert. I'm not going to tell you I know everything about it. So when we get to some of these points, Aaron, we will watch for your comments and please chime in, come off mute and say, hey, hold on, this is what I've seen, because that's what we want. We want to get
hmm
the implementation is still new for lots of people. And I know Aaron, especially, you have a lot of experience. So we'd love to. I saw your name registered and we were hoping you were going to join. So we're happy to have you. Okay, so let's go through this. So again,
And
here's the
sorry, Jen, one more point is obviously there's a new release that's coming out or has come out for some orgs. And so some of these things could even change tomorrow. So so we'll all
yeah,
keep that in mind as well.
for sure, for sure. Awesome. So again, here's like we outline basic steps for the implementation process. Like obviously there's a data cloud setup and data usage, right? And, then there's a marketing cloud setup and you're going to go through those buttons. But then we highlighted like, let's talk about some of these points and like what it's like to actually go through this with a client. And so you can see the ones in bold are the ones that, Julie and we're going to tag team and try to work through those. So I guess I'm up. So authentication of domain and subdomain. So why is this listed as a gotcha? So when you're going through the system and you're like, okay, obviously we need to get an authenticated domain, you're going to go into a domain, and then you're going to eventually get to a screen like this where there's all these records that needs to be set up. Honestly, if I was doing an implementation, I would probably start this right away because it always seems like it takes more time. It's never simple. And I would actually say for anyone on the call who's got an account engagement background where at least you were just verifying a domain, it was like, I think it was only like 2 records, CNAME records that need to be added. So now this authentication, there's more to it. So what you would do with this is like you're going to go to the domain, and you're going to, populate. I think it prompts you to enter what you're putting in as a subdomain, and then you hit next, and then you get to this with the records. I think Julie, I think you and I would both agree a good practice is to actually like take, copy these records and put them in a spreadsheet and send them to your IT person. I think that's a common way to do that. All the lines must include the information presented by the domain registrar. Another key gotcha is this is some companies might have a subdomain, but they're not really using it. Like it's not, doesn't have a real email behind it. And so that's another catch. So you want to make sure, hey, this is going to take some work. I usually get this started right away because it takes time for that client to actually do their part. And also you want to bring up that they're going to need a viable email address for the subdomain, which also sometimes catches company, and that takes time. Julie, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I just, Salesforce is highly recommending that you use a subdomain just to maintain the reputation and other reasons. But you can skip the screen and use the domain. I mean, physically you can do that. Yeah, because I've run into issues where the client is like, I don't want to set up a subdomain. I don't have an email address. And so, you can set it up as the domain. It's just Salesforce doesn't recommend it.
Yeah, yeah. And so then when you actually get, all of these in, subdomain is verified, all of the records are in, I think you come back to here and you can basically say, yes, I completed my changes with my DNS provider, and you can activate your domain. So once all the domain entries are made, just check that box and hit activate. Okay. So you can kind of see like the drift, right? We're not going through everything step by step, but we're just speaking to some of them. Second one is now installing data kits to Data Cloud. Like I said, I don't know, like some of the people that are on the call, but like I have never actually gotten to the installing the data kits. It sounds easy where you just press the install button and they all turn green, but they have never all turned green for me ever. They are always varying degrees of red. So in this case, you can see they all were red, and then it says retry. And if you read the documentation, it simply says, go ahead and just, if they don't deploy with green, just hit reinstall or retry again. And I don't know, like nothing changes. A lot of times it still stays red. Here's a screenshot. This is my dev org because I actually, recently deployed one and I got everything to turn green. So I took a screenshot of it. And it's important to get to this. So again, issues. I seem to have trouble with this every single time. I can hit refresh or retry, but to get a green check, but sometimes it doesn't work. I often get failed, specifically the Sales Cloud data kit. A lot of times what I do is I just go in and manually deploy it because I've had good luck with that. I'll just go manually deploy it, and then I come back and hit refresh, and then it turns green. I know with my dev org, which is my SDO, so if you're a partner, you might have access to a dev org. There's a permissions I need to update, and so I do that as well. So then I think that my dev org will do that. But it's important to get all the green checks before you run your identity resolution rules. Especially off the get-go. I would make sure that everything looks good. If you are still struggling, then I recommend submitting a support ticket before I go to the next step. So I would say this is why one of my gotchas, because like if you're going through the implementation process, the documentation looks simple, like just hit this and you're going to be good to go. Oh, it's all done in a checkbox. And I always usually end up spending time here trying to get all of this work. I don't know if you have anything more to add there, Julie.
No. Other than the next release may resolve a lot of this.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful too. Like I have seen huge changes in the system. Literally every month there's like significant changes happening, and I do anticipate that things will become easier as well. But I'm just speaking from my experience as of, and I think this one, my last SDO or guide deployed was in August, so you can see it's fairly recent. And then I also put this in the deck again. When I say I manually deployed the data kit, I just put this in here. These are the steps that I did. You're going into the Data Cloud app, and you're choosing the Data Streams tab. You're choosing Salesforce under, standard data bundles. You click Sales, and you kind of go through it and click Deploy. So it's really not that big of a deal. And I think Salesforce has done a good job streamlining this because you used to have to do this for every data kit, which was a lot of work and it was tedious. But I think it's nice just to have this knowledge to know that, because sometimes you submit support tickets and you're waiting and waiting and waiting. So it's something to try. Okay, so I'm going to let Julie grab this one. So go ahead,
Okay.
Julie.
Yeah, so that's a good transition into, streaming in custom fields and objects manually from Salesforce. So there was a question in the chat as to what these data kits include for Sales Cloud. So it includes leads, contacts, accounts, opportunities, campaigns, campaign members, but the standard fields only. So if you have any custom fields that marketing would needs to either build a segment off of or merge into an email, you'll need to stream in those custom fields separately. So again, we're making some assumptions that you know basic data cloud, but I'll kind of walk you through the steps. If you could go next, Jen. Next slide. Why do we add custom fields? So that was sort of explain that segments as well as merging. So I have an example here of a client who wanted to add functional role to their contact as a pick list of general functional roles for contact. So let's walk through the next slide. So what you'll do if you have a function, I laid out the directions and I'll kind of go over it briefly, but you can refer to this slide if you need, a refresher, because we'll give you the slides afterwards. So basically what you would do is you'd go to the data stream, you'd pull up the standard object or custom object that you need to stream in. So I'm pulling up the contact stream and you click, there's a button in the upper right-hand corner, it says add source field. So you click that button and you'll select the custom fields that you want to add. The ones that have not been streamed in will show up in this list. However, there is a gotcha. You need to make sure that the connector user permission set has access to that field, because you might go in here and there's nothing showing and you'll have to dig through the documentation to realize you need to update the permission set. So go ahead to the next slide. So the permission set is called the Data Cloud Salesforce Connector Permission Set. So you would just pull that permission set up, edit it, and go to the object. Again, I'm assuming you know how to edit a permission set, but you go to the object and then you select the fields that permission set should have access to, or read access. You can also say, this connector user should have view access to all fields. But go ahead, next. I'll go through this quickly because we have a lot to cover. So then once you stream in the field, you still need to map it to the data model object. So this again is part of the data cloud configuration, but this is what the mapping table looks like. So you'd pull up the contact stream, you'd click this review button. You're brought into this mapping table that I have a screenshot down below. The left-hand side is the data stream. So the functional, that functional area or role will be there. But on the right-hand side is the map corresponding data model object. And that could either go to the account contact object in the DMO or the individual. So you would have to make that decision. But all these standard objects were automatically mapped by that data kit. So you just have to map those custom fields. So as a consultant, you really need to think about and coach the client into what custom fields they need available in Data Cloud. It's kind of similar to what we did in account engagement or Pardot. but it's a little more sophisticated, a little more complex. So go ahead to the next slide. So this is just showing you how to map. On the bottom screen, you can see I mapped the functional role on the left side I created a new field on the right under account contact to functional role. So go ahead to the next slide. And then just considerations, that data streams stream in the data about every 15 minutes or so. So if you went right away after you did that mapping exercise and built a segment, you might not find any records. So you really need to wait a little bit until the data stream will run again to include the functional role for that example in the next round. Go ahead, next slide.
Oh, it's me.
Yep, it's all you.
We're totally doing fine on time, Julie. In fact, we're good.
Yeah, I moved that quickly.
No, it's all good. Okay, so the next is running identity resolution and what gotchas you have for that. So identity resolution is, again, it's how the system is, forming that unified individual. So when you're going through the process, if you're going through, I can literally picture it like the steps if you're on the assistant home, which is the setup for Marketing Cloud Next, and you're following through the checklist that they provide in that setup screen. You're going to get down to like once your data kits are there, everything looks green, then you can move forward to the identity resolution rule. And so what here is that they've kind of got this built in. There's an easy button, easy step where you can just literally go down and click this generate rule set. And if you click that, it's going to create a basic rule set for only normalized email. And so and that's again a very simple way of doing it. Depending on what your system is doing or what type of what business you are in and what your data looks like, that might make sense and that might be all you need. You might need to do something more and we'll chat about that. But here we have once you then, in this example, I just simply use the out of the box normalized email. And then once everything's done, you can see then it'll populate here. You just hit refresh on your browser and you can see the identity resolution reset rule set populate in here. So what's the gotcha? Because I'll just, talk through what this was. My gotcha is that I've learned to have a lot more respect. And Aaron, I don't know if you have something, or Stephanie, if you guys want to chime in at this point too. But to me, the gotchas with identity resolution rule is just to be careful with it. I have been on a project where there was some mapping problems with Data Cloud. So we were unmapping it. It got really hairy and sticky. And I think we even talked with Salesforce. And that was my key questions. I'm like, there's so much unmapping going on as we correct things. What's going to happen with my identity resolution rules? And they were like concerned as well. So they had the same concern as me. So it just is such a foundational step. I would treat that identity resolution with some reverence. Like it's not something that you're like, oh, let's do it this way and try it out. Oh, let's do it this other way. Like I tend to, especially at the beginning, make sure all your data kits look green, have a plan. It kind of is general, I would say, best practices with Data Cloud as well. Think through everything, look at your data, have a plan, and then move forward once you kind of have everything laid out, right? When you build a house, you don't just start digging the foundation and putting up walls, right? You have a blueprint and you know where you're going and everything goes well. And then that project goes very smoothly. So again, don't play around with it. We had another problem as well as when a client was in there, something didn't look right. So then they were in there changing the fields, definitely wouldn't be doing anything like that. So just want to make sure your core data streaming is all set up and you're confident in everything. I don't know, Aaron or Stephanie, do you guys have anything to add on identity resolution rules or your experiences with those?
No, my experience is the same. And I know there's the guidance on the additional rules Salesforce wants you to add in, but I think they're doing that by default once the winter release is out anyways.
Yeah. And then I did add the steps. Again, I'm not going to go through it, but it's guidelines is that if you actually wanted to have I'm not planning to use the generic normalized email only. So here's an example where I used fuzzy name and normalized emails. And so it's just, here are the 8 steps on what you would do to do that. So again, if you're stepping off the happy path of just something quick setup, and you need to actually do something a little more detailed. These are the steps you could follow to do that. And because every business is different and all the data is different. Upload consent. It's funny, we only picked 7 gotchas, and I was like, after we put this presentation, I kept thinking of like 3 more to add. So I'm like, it's kind of hard to pick these, but the upload consent. So let's just kind of go through what this is. What I meant by this is that like once you have the system, like you again, basics, data streaming in, your identity resolutions are set up. This is when you're actually starting to populate the data. So what's different is how consent is managed in the new Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced. You actually need to import them. So if you obviously have a client that has leads or contacts, and if they're using other channels, maybe they're using WhatsApp or SMS. But you can see here is that information needs to be imported, and it needs to be imported with consent data. So you can import by channel. At the top here, I chose email. It could be SMS or other things, and by subscription. And subscription is kind of like your preference page. So a subscription is like marketing might be a subscription, or a newsletter is a subscription. And then you can see below, I can choose either opt-in or opt-out. So more often you're choosing opt-in because you're needing to import people with consent. And so you need to import them that way. So again, as you walk through, this is a little WYSIWYG editor. It's obviously really quick. It's just got 3 stops. So like, fill these out. And then the next step here is when you're getting to the upload file. So the key here is obviously make sure you're using the sample file. That's got the formatting that you need to do. Always use the sample file for that formatting. And then the other piece that I would say, this is where I'd say it kind of steps off the rules of Salesforce, is that you are going to be required to enter a consent date. So you can see here, I'm importing the email, and Salesforce is saying, I need to say, when did this person provide consent? And we've never tracked, like most companies have not had to track that before. And if you read this guideline from Salesforce, they might say, well, if that person was imported from a form, go look when they submitted their first form. Or maybe, you imported them from some type of content syndication, right? That you should have that recorded. So my gotcha is that I personally have not seen a company that actually has that data. And reality is, while it would be nice to have, I have imported just with today's date. So I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I don't know how else I would do it, because the amount of time it would take when you've got tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of names that you're going to be, categorizing them into making sure that consent date is correct is tedious. So I'm careful with this when I say this. So I would say, obviously, if you're working with a client, make sure you're talking with them, the risks involved. If they need to talk to their legal to get legal advice, you should be doing that. But again, the documentation, acts like you would have all that data at hand, and most companies don't have that. And Julie, do you want to talk about the flow and you're importing leads? 'Cause I
Yeah.
think you knew more
Yeah,
about that.
sure. So some of my clients, they were surprised that when you create a contact manually in Salesforce, or you create a lead, or a lead comes in from a form, that everybody is opted out by default. That's the new standard. They're opted out, which means if you go to send an email and they're on the segment, they will not get the email. So there are a couple of considerations around this. Is one, if you're using a Marketing Cloud form on their website, or the new form handler, which just came out, you can there'll be a step in the flow with the form completion to opt them in. The second piece to that is you can build a flow, which I have not actually built, but I have seen some documentation around that, where when a record is created, they're automatically opted in if that's what the organization allows. But because of all the new privacy out there, you need to be really conscious of that. It's really more, especially on the SMS side, but it's becoming more important on the email side.
Cool. All right. There you go, Julie. Do you want to keep going here then?
Oh, yeah, sure. So go ahead. We're going to talk about list building. So Data Cloud has that nice segment builder. It's brand new. It's a new user interface to a lot of people that might be more familiar with building reports in Salesforce or using Pardot and using their segment builder, their list builder. For companies that are smaller that may not be sending emails to, 100,000 people, and may only be building lists, a handful of times a week, using campaign members can be a really good alternative, especially those people that are really comfortable with Salesforce reports and don't want to learn a new segment builder tool. So this is something I would show those smaller companies. And the reason this is a gotcha is because the customers may not realize it, but also consultants may not realize that this is an easier way to go for those smaller clients. So the solution would be to just create a Salesforce report of your contacts or leads that you want to email. You have all those options of choosing related records along the way, and then send that contact or lead report to the campaign as campaign members. So this functionality works right out of the box. So go ahead to the next slide. So when you send that list of contacts to the Salesforce campaign as campaign members, you choose a status, or you create a new status and you choose a status such as invite, and the campaign members will be added to the campaign. And then go ahead to the next slide. When in Marketing Cloud, when you go to build your campaign and build your flow, instead of choosing, when you select your segment, instead of choosing go to segment builder or select an existing segment, click send to campaign members, and it will look at the campaign members on that campaign, and it will build the segment for those members. Go ahead to the next slide. But you need to remember that data has to flow through Data Cloud. So while you built that report and created those campaign members, they're not in Data Cloud right away. So they have to stream into Data Cloud, which can take about 15 minutes before you send the email, before you start to see that segment population increase. So when you click, go ahead to the next slide. So you want to preview the segment, make sure it pulled in those members, but it creates, go back to the other slide, Jen, sorry. It'll create a segment for you, but the segment will have, it says Julie's test segment, and there's a long string of numbers to the right. That's kind of what it will look like. It'll have the name of the campaign segment and that string of numbers. But that's just another way to build your lists. Anything to add to that, Jen?
No.
Okay, so the next gotcha I had was enable Agentforce. So go ahead to the next slide. So Agentforce, the reason it's a gotcha is really that consultants tend to forget to enable. It's now included in the Jumpstart deliverables from Salesforce. So it's very important that it gets set up. And marketing consultants may not have been trained in Agentforce yet, so it's kind of new, but there are some really good directions and documentation out there for setting this up. But basically what Agentforce in the Marketing Cloud environment can give you, it's just amazing. It's around generative AI. So if it's set up, you'll see that little icon in the top right-hand corner. That's your Agentforce icon. And you would just type in what you want Agentforce to do, just like you would on ChatGPT. One example would be create a brief. And if you ask Agentforce to create a brief, it'll prompt you for the name of the brief or who you're trying to market to, and what kind of content, how many messages, and those types of things. So it's very helpful. So Agentforce can create the brief, it can create the campaign, it can create an email template. I know in the current release it's one message, but I think in the next release they're adding the series functionality. It can build the segment and it can create the flow for you just through generative AI. So I highly recommend setting that up and playing around with it. So go ahead to the next slide. So this is what it looks like if you're within the email template builder. If you know you want an idea for your content, you just click the little over on the right hand side. You see the little stars. You click that and you type in what you want it to say, and it'll give you some ideas. So I highly recommend setting that up. Go ahead, Jen. And the last thing on my list here is foundations. So foundations is fairly new, right? I don't know a lot about it, but I have a client that I just experienced this with, where they have Sales Cloud, they purchased Sales Cloud, but now they want to add that free marketing app through foundations. So after playing around with it and seeing what I could build for them, basically what the marketing app is, it's a very free, very limited version of Marketing Cloud Growth. There are some pieces that if you've implemented Marketing Cloud Growth and you go into setup, they're just not going to be there. So for example, there's no authenticated domain. You set up a org-wide email address instead of authenticating a domain. So it's using the Salesforce domain somehow. Just kind of like with Sales Cloud, when you send a one-off email, you're using an org-wide email address. So it uses that technology. So what does Foundations include? From what I can see in the documentation, it's segmentation on the unified individual. You have an email builder and you can send out of the box initially up to 2,000 emails per month, which is not very many, certainly, but you can certainly ask your AE for more sends. That's an added cost. You have access to consent, to campaigns, forms and landing pages, but it does not include things like dynamic content, cross-object merge tags or repeaters, scoring, best fit. It's very limited in the setup options. So if you look at the bottom here, you see the email builder. On the right-hand side, you don't see those dynamic content options. So go to the next slide. So the setup page is very different. When you go to marketing app setup, you just see these two things, marketing settings and profile unification. So it's very limited in what you have access to. So like if you over on the right-hand side, if you typed, this is the first thing I did, typed authenticated domain and it wasn't there. So you have to kind of, I just thought I'd save some time for any of you on the call that may be getting those kind of questions about foundations. All right, Jen?
Q&A.
Great, we left enough time. And so in addition to questions, we'd love to hear from you about anything you may have seen that would be a gotcha that might help the rest of us with, setting up the system. Any questions?
Let's go through I don't know, there's 38 people in the chat, so I assume there's some questions in there. Brandon's been answering. I'm just going through the chat, so if someone wants to go off mute and ask or talk about it, like I said, it can be anything. You can ask a question, or if you have comments, go for it. So any experience setting up Google Analytics or ads in Data Cloud? I do not have any experience with that. I don't know, Aaron or Brandon or Julie, if you guys have. Julie, I don't have. You, Julie?
I don't know, but I have heard and read that they are going to be adding a lot of options in the connector and Data Cloud, but I don't know, to what extent and what the functionality is.
Yeah.
Anybody? Aaron, Brandon?
They join our call and we call on them. I bet they love that. No, we're going to scare them away.
No, I was answering that.
I'm multitasking.
Yeah, I didn't hear the question. I was multitasking too.
No. So the question is do you have any experience setting up Google Analytics or ads in Data Cloud?
Ads, no. I know there's a Google Analytics connector for Data Cloud, and I've just enabled it, but I've only done like the implementation steps there, not really gotten to the reporting and all that.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
I figured.
Same with a lot of us.
And generally, when you're thinking Data Cloud, you're able to pull in the schema information. So I think that's just the thing as all of these new data cloud connectors become available, you're essentially just connecting to the data. And that's the answer that that I've been getting asked a lot. Is it's not when you're setting up the connector, it's not adding any new capabilities there that weren't there before, but the data schema that exists in, whether it's Google Analytics or any of these data sources, it just basically gives you the ability to pull that in. And then you still have to leverage like all of the complex identity resolution stuff, which I admit I am still learning and exploring. But I think the challenge is there's not a silver bullet that says, oh, connect to this Google Ads or Google Analytics, and it's just going to give you everything exactly how you want it. But you can connect to those tools, and you'll get good at understanding API and authentication and
data.
data. Yep.
Yeah. Dan asked about the why there's so many CNAME records that need to be added for authentication. See, I don't know. I really don't. I was just looking to see if it was a lot more like DMARC involved, which I think is common. I don't really know.
I think there's part of that. The other part of it too is they have some of that reply mail management stuff built in. So you look at some of those records. So I think the idea is
Right.
that with more of the authentication, it's going to allow those domains to be authenticated to do more, especially when we're talking about like handling replies as well.
Oh, awesome.
Right. And
Thanks.
out of office. Right.
Exactly.
Avoid.
Or like in Pardot or MCAE, all we were doing was saying, okay, there's this email server sitting over here, and we just want to give it the green light to send domain or send emails from a domain. And then we'd have to go in and set the separate one for the landing pages and things like that. So it's setting up a framework to do more than just send out emails and host content.
Right.
Awesome.
That makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. That was helpful.
Cool. Anything else? I actually am going through the questions and people were responding to them, so they are getting answered, I think. Wow. I'll be honest, this is really different for me because most of my sessions, it seems like we are always under the gun and like getting to the last 10% and having to go really fast and then having less time for questions. So sorry, Julie, I feel like I prepped too much.
I
too
think
much
Jen scared me. So
I know, like we gotta go. We
I
gotta keep
whizzed
moving.
right through.
Well, we had like 50 slides on the deck, and I'm like, okay, we got to make sure we keep moving on this stuff, or we'll never make it. But no, I think we're in good shape.
Let's talk about the formula fields. One of the questions was, can we ingest formula fields from Salesforce into Data Cloud? Can we stream that in and then map it to a custom field in the DMO? And from what I've understand, the answer was yes. But I think, Aaron, did you have some experience with that?
Sorry, I was
calling her again.
answering another Slack message. Here, I'll come off. I'll turn my camera on so I won't multitask.
Thank you. So someone asked about formula fields, and I had assumed we could just stream them in and map them to a DMO custom field. But you had responded that it's the formula and not the data.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about this because I was told like if you map a Salesforce formula field to Data Cloud, it will just push the formula, not the result. But you can create a Data Cloud formula field to basically rebuild the form. I'm very confused. I'm not the best person to, but basically for our org, we had to format some phone numbers, and I was told like not use a formula. So what I'm doing is I have a flow that takes the phone number, sees if it starts with +1, formats it, puts it in another field, and that field is just a phone field. And that's what we map to Data Cloud to avoid like the whole formatting issue and because we couldn't use a formula.
Okay. I'll have to test that because I haven't actually had to stream in a formula field. But I have seen that with the SMS, the phone numbers have to be formatted in a certain way where the SMS can understand there's got to be a country code. It's got to be exactly formatted correctly. You can do that formatting in Data Cloud in a Data Cloud formula, which is what we've done.
That's my
Yeah.
experience. That's my experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they charge you for it every single time.
Right. Right.
Now
It's
we're
free
paying
if you
for
do it
hardware.
Aaron's way.
Yeah, we wanted to be able to like manipulate it on the Salesforce side. So that's why we didn't go with the data cloud formula, but I think both
Right.
work.
Yeah.
I got a question asking if they need a tracker domain in Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced. So I don't think it quite works the exact same way. I think they're coming from like, I know in account engagement, right? You have the sending domain at the top and you make sure that's verified, your SPF and DKIM, and then at the bottom you have a tracker domain and you're actually verifying that. And the setup is different. Go ahead.
Yeah, so when you're setting up a landing page, that's really your tracker domain, and you're using the sites area, which is what they used in Community Cloud or Experience Cloud. So it is similar in that respect, where you're setting up a domain specifically for the landing pages.
Yeah.
But I don't know how that impacts like a subscription page, right? Because when you set up a tracker domain in account engagement, that tracker domain shows up when you click on the preference center. Whereas the domain that you're setting up for landing pages is completely separate from the preference page.
It's different. I
So
know.
it's
I
different.
agree.
So I'm not sure how you track page views, and all that. If you're combining all the preference center pages.
Yeah. All right. I don't know if
We
there's any
keeping
more
you up,
questions
Jen?
coming in. No. I don't know if I don't see any more questions coming in, so we can wrap it up here too if there's nothing else. But thanks. It's again, like I said, nice to come together and talk about this. I appreciate Aaron and the folks who have also chimed in and answered questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
We
And I
don't
know
do
there's-
that every time, Aaron and Brandon.
Happy to help.
I was going to use this hour to multitask, drink my coffee, and catch up with work. And here I am.
Brandon's
Put you on
gonna
the
bill us for an
spot.
hour of consulting time now, I think.
Yeah, I'm an agent force agent now. I'm just.
I feel like
Awesome.
we all have to
Right.
learn together with this
Oh,
tool.
Yeah,
oh my gosh, yeah,
I know.
for sure.
We're all testing different things and bumping into different questions from clients. So, all right.
Thank
Well,
you,
it's
everybody.
great
Take
to
care.
see you all. Hopefully it was helpful. Take
All
care.
right. Bye.
Bye-bye.